I've been telling you that Donald Trump is the candidate who is afraid of doing hard-hitting interviews. Now Kamala Harris is doing a Fox News interview with the most hostile network to her, and Trump just keeps doing one softball after another. Well, that changed. Finally, Trump did what I would describe as a more real interview. Someone who actually had real questions and tried to press Trump on things. And what have I told you before? Trump either storms off, loses all ability to coherently explain his thoughts, or something to that effect. And that's what happened at this Economic Club of Chicago event. And let's just dive right in. I think this first clip gives you a sense of, let's see where we're starting, gives you a sense of what I'm talking about. I might have to put it on 2x speed at some point because it goes on for so long where he can't answer policy questions. He can't. And he descends to madness every time he's asked one.
We have to straighten out our press because we have a corrupt press. That's the one we really have.
Can I ask you about Silicon? I was in Silicon Valley recently. You talked to the tech bosses there and the tech people, and there seems to be a real fear that what you would do with tech is you would hand it over to Elon Musk and say, you sort it out.
No, I have great...
So the question is, I just have to specify this before you listen to the answer because you'll think, no, I hear what he's saying. He's saying something about rockets. And that wasn't the question. Will you hand over, I guess, regulations around technology companies to Elon Musk if you were to win? Essentially is the question. While you're listening to the answer, please do remember to click that subscribe button as we're charging towards 1 million subscribers. I have really something really special for all of you when that happens. But here's Trump's answer.
Great respect for Elon. Look, I saw that rocket ship come in yesterday and go right back to where it took off, to the gantry, I guess they call it. And I said, what the hell? I was on a phone talking about probably politics. And the television's on, and I'm seeing this big thing where the white paint was burned off it from that, thousands of miles an hour, the heat. And I see this big, massive tube that's 10 stories, 20 stories tall come down. I told the person on the phone, wait a minute, I'm seeing something I don't believe it. Neither does anybody else here. And I said, wait a minute. I forgot the guy was on the phone. He waited for a half hour. And I watched.
Will Elon Musk? He's just talking about SpaceX.
I watched that come down, and I watched it come down and come right in between those big levers. And I said, and it looked to me like it was going to crash. It was coming in hot. And all of a sudden, boom, you see the motor, the fire kick in. And I called Elon. I said, that's the most incredible thing. I said, can Russia do that? Nope. I said, can the United States do it? Nope.
I will now put this on 2x speed. Take note of how uncomfortable the interviewer is. Then we'll get on to other moments. Let's see if he ever gets back and properly answers the question.
They can do it. And
you don't want to put him in charge of deregulation?
Not deregulation, cutting.
Cutting wasteful spending.
Cutting, which would include deregulation.
Every president comes in and talks about cutting wasteful spending.
Oh, there's tremendous.
Give me an example of something you will do that will get rid of government spending.
Well, let me give you an example. When I came into government, I was the first thing...
Example going forward.
Well, no, but this is going forward because it's the same thing. When I first sat down, a general came into my office and he said, sir, it's nice to meet you. Would you please sign this? I said, what is it? It's a contract for a new Air Force One, which is actually 2 planes, not one, 2 Boeing 747. And I said, how much is it? $5.7 billion. It's a hell of an expensive plane, but there's reasons for that. He said, nope, I'm not signing it. I said, who negotiated it? Barack Hussein Obama. I said, I'm not signing it. Why? Because there's a lot of fat. He said, I'm not signing it. It's got to have a 3 on it. Anyway, long story short, some of you have heard this. I got it down to, because first week they cut off $400 million.
Okay, so then he tells the whole Air Force One story. But see, saying you're going to cut the deficit, and actually he goes as far as to say he's going to start paying down debt by doing great negotiations like you did last time, makes no sense when last time you added more to the debt than any president in American history. Oh, but it's because of COVID. Still, pre-COVID, added 2x that of Biden, if you also exclude COVID with Biden. So you can't cite your last time in office, every time you're confronted about his tariff proposals, and we're about to get to those, and that's crazy, or on cutting wasteful spending, you can't say that everything's going to be solved through growth and cutting wasteful spending, and that's how we're going to actually start paying down the deficit, or decreasing the deficit, paying down the debt. When last time around, you said the same thing, and you were the worst on the debt and deficit. Even as much as Republicans lie about Biden's record on that, way worse, twice as bad as Biden's record. It's crazy, but people just accept it. And then he is asked about January 6th. Then we'll get to him talking about tariffs, and it's a doozy.
Business people, capital markets, they all like the rule of law. They like certainty. The Chinese, who you mentioned, other dictators,
Right.
They don't like it when things go wrong. They like it when things go wrong in America. If you look at the events of January the 6th, 2021, it showed to many people America's democracy was unruly and violent. Only 3 weeks to go to the election. Will you commit now to respecting and encouraging a peaceful transfer of power?
Well, you had a peaceful transfer of power.
You had a peaceful transfer of power. You had a peaceful. Come on, President Trump. You had a peaceful transfer of power compared with Venezuela, but it was by far the worst transfer of power for a long time.
Thank you. I appreciate that, because this is what they like to do. This is what they like to do.
I've noticed in this too, Jade and I were talking about, Trump's really sort of slouch over. Even though he's sitting back now, he still sort of has an interesting posture.
And it's very interesting.
The question, President Trump, is would you respect the decision?
When I found out about this interview, I did a little check. He's a man that has not been a big Trump fan over the years. So I had a choice. Do I do this interview or not? I'm glad I did it. But do I do this interview, or do I disappoint a lot of people? Because I know a lot of people in the audience. But his view is very different than mine. Let me just say.
I'm asking you a question, Trester.
We had a term, peacefully and patriotic.
Right, and then he just goes on to do his normal January 6th bit. But this is the new talking point from Republicans. Oh, we had a peaceful transfer of power because Trump left on January 20th. After violence. What? No, I don't know. I don't know how you say that with a straight face. I've heard people, cite metaphors for this, but if violence breaks out in an effort to prevent the peaceful transfer of power, then the law prevails ultimately. That doesn't erase what happened. It also doesn't erase that you were trying to prevent the transfer of power through the schemes that you're now being prosecuted for and barely failed. Then on tariffs, let's do it, because Trump gets asked in this, and we were watching the whole thing while we were prepping for some other segments. So I listened to it, and the whole time Trump gets asked any economic question, somehow we get back to tariffs. Tariffs are solving everything. We're going to put 200. At one point, he says maybe 2,000% tariffs, just because we're going to force every single solution down the throats of everyone through tariffs. And it's going to be perfect, but it's not going to impact inflation. It's going to be magic.
The world. That is going to have a serious effect on the overall economy. And yes, you're going to find some people who will gain from individual tariffs. The overall effect could be massive in terms of the economy.
I agree it's going to have a massive effect, positive effect. It's going to be a positive, not a negative.
Well,
let me just tell you. Let me tell you. I know how committed you are to
He really just does not look... I really don't want to make judgment. He just doesn't look well, maybe, is the right word. Right? How he has previously? I don't know. Something's just looking off lately.
To this, and it must be hard for you to, spend 25 years talking about tariffs as being negative, and then have somebody explain to you that you're totally wrong. It'll have a negative. It will have. I'll go a step further. If you don't do this, this country has no chance.
40 million jobs is a lot of jobs to rely on trade.
They're all coming back.
Those are 40 million jobs. Those are 40 million jobs in America that rely on trade.
Are you ready? John Deere, great company. They announced about a year ago they're going to build big plants outside of the United States, right? They're going to build them in Mexico.
And you threatened them with tariffs and they stopped.
That's right. I said, if John Deere builds those plants and not selling anything into the United States, They just announced yesterday they're probably not going to build the plants, okay? I kept it.
Okay. So let's continue forward. I have a few points to make, but they connect to these next clips. So Trump getting upset with the moderator. I have to say, I appreciate that he tried to cut Trump off at some point, but the only way you're going to do it is if you just charge forward. You can't do the, well, let me just, because Trump will, you know, I said it could only be 3 billion. They said, no, how about 4 or 5? And I said, no, not 3 billion. They said, okay, I'll do it 4. I said, no, I 3. You know, the rocket, I saw it coming down. So what are you doing with the tech industry? The rocket, it came down. It went in the perfect circle. Oh, circles. That reminds me of Biden circles. You know, when Biden circles, everyone's in the election. But you have to talk over Trump as aggressively as he's going to talk over you. Otherwise, he'll just do what I did, as we're seeing, and you'll never get awarded. But I at least appreciate the moderator tried.
No, you talked a lot about tariffs. You look at the American economy, 40 million jobs rely on trade. It counts for 27% of GDP.
Okay.
If you cut that off, that's also going to have an effect on many, many business people here.
Yeah.
Tariffs also have another side. Isn't that something that you have to acknowledge?
No.
You could be plunging America into the biggest trade war since Smoot-Hawley.
But there are no tariffs.
You're going to stop. There are tariffs already at the moment.
There are no tariffs. All you have to do is build your plant in the United States, and you don't have any tariffs.
But people,
This
a
is
lot
what
of
I
places,
want.
a lot of places like this, there are a lot of jobs that rely on foreigners coming here. You're going to basically stop trade with China. You're talking about 60% tariffs on that. You're talking, as you said, 100, 200% on things you don't really like. You're also talking about 10, 20% tariffs on the rest of the world. That is going to have a serious effect on the overall economy. And yes, you're going to find some people who will gain from individual tariffs. The overall effect could be massive in terms of the economy.
I agree. It's going to have a massive.
And then this gets into the other clip, and we'll just keep going before I respond so you can hear. I wish I could. At one point, the 2000 part just is something else. But here's Trump defending his 10% across the board and saying that's not enough.
United States and build a factory in the United States so it doesn't have to pay the tariff.
That will take many, that will take many years.
In fact, I'll tell you, you know, there's another theory is that the tariff, you make it so high, so horrible, so obnoxious that they'll come right away. When I do the 10%, 10% is really, first of all, 10% when you collect it is hundreds of billions of dollars. The numbers that you're talking, all reducing our deficit. But really, so there's two ways of looking at a tariff. You can do it as a money-making instrument, or you can do it as something to get the companies. Now, if you want the companies to come in, the tariff has to be a lot higher than 10%, because 10% is not enough. Guys, they're not going to do it for 10.
Okay. You know, I had someone just recently say, because he'd been listening to a lot of clips like this one, sort of, could you explain tariffs? Just because after hearing this, I'm discombobulated about what even we're talking about. Because the way Trump talks about it makes you go, wait, is there some other magic tariff where you can go, hey, China, pay me. You get that company to pay me in your country for because we're going to. No, there's not. What he's misunderstanding for years now, which should make you really scared that this is his one economic proposal, it seems, is that a tariff is a tax on the importer in the United States. The company that's importing foreign stuff pays the tax. So we're not going to make a bunch of money from other countries because they're going to be paying us for the tariffs that we're... And he doesn't get it. So there he said two good options, the money-making opportunity. What are you talking about? And then his way of consoling people or trying to decrease their concern is, listen, when I say I might do a 2,000% tariff or John Deere a 200% tariff or across the board a 10 or maybe 20% tariff, it's really just a threat. Because I'll say that, and it'll be such a burden that all the companies won't ever end up having to be taxed by that, and thus they won't increase their the price of their products because they'll just bring all their manufacturing to the United States immediately, and everything will be fixed. It'll be perfect. But that's just not how the global economy works. That's not how our domestic economy works. So let's make it really simple. I have cameras in front of me, so I'll use cameras as an example. The camera I have in front of me has a lens. Let's say the U.S. company that makes cameras, Camera Inc., I don't know if that's it, definitely not, but gets its lenses from China. It purchases as a product lenses, imports them, puts it into the cameras, sells to U.S. consumers. If Trump comes along and says, I'm going to put a gargantuous tariff on all imports from China that impacts the lenses, Camera Inc. may not have, for the same cost, they probably don't, if this were a real world scenario, they probably don't have a U.S. source to go to for those lenses that is the same cost. So either they're going to have to pay the tax because it's on them, not on the Chinese exporter, and continue importing those lenses, or they're going to have to go to a more expensive, because U.S. labor is more expensive, so likely these lenses will be more expensive, U.S. manufacturer of these lenses, or ramp up their own making of them. They become the manufacturer, which would also be more expensive. And so while sometimes tariffs are absolutely justified, we've talked about that before, with crucial stuff that in the case of a war or an economic disaster or an economic war with another country, we wouldn't want the supply chain to be so reliant on a different country. Sometimes we're going to have to deal with more expensive prices, but we want to bring certain supply chains to the United States. Understandable. But Trump's across the board just because we're going to crush all of the foreign countries that benefit from exporters to the United States. It's not coherent. It would cause inflation massively. He acts like there's this magic outcome and completely misunderstands macroeconomics. It's sad. Then he gets asked if Putin and him have called, and while not confirming it, he confirms it.
You just mentioned Putin, though, and has been this controversy of the past week. Can you say yes or no whether you have talked to Vladimir Putin since you stopped being president?
Well, I don't comment on that, but I will tell you that if I did, it's a smart thing. If I'm friendly with people, if I have a relationship with people, that's a good thing, not a bad thing, in terms of a country. He's got 2,000 nuclear weapons, and so do we. China has a lot less, but they'll catch us within 5 years.
Yes, so he confirms that post the White House, as was reported by Bob Woodward. I'm trying to find the next clip I was going to show you, but it's vanished. So maybe that'll be it. But Bob Woodward reported on these numerous calls between Putin and Trump since Trump left the White House, and it's just, why would a foreign president be calling with Putin? And that was the same reporting that revealed the tests when they were really hard to get. Trump was sending over to Putin during the pandemic, crazy. But there he says it would be very smart if I did. I'm not saying if I did, but if I did, it would be genius. And if I didn't, it would be stupid. But I'm not saying that I definitely did, but I'm smart. It's smart. What an interview. And that's not even, I can't give you the essence of it in just a few clips. It was just a whole, I don't know if it reached an hour, but a whole debacle playing out as Trump was challenged and could not explain his own ideas. Scary, scary stuff. Let me know what you thought in the comments. Support the show. Get the members only bonus show by clicking the join button below.